Ellie Vance drove a 40-penny nail into the heart of the reclaimed oak door jamb with a single, furious swing of her hammer. The sound cracked through the cavernous, silent halls of the Sinclair mansion. A magnificent but decaying Queen Anne revival she was painstakingly restoring. For Ellie, a structural engineer and architectural preservation specialist, the fight to set this door straight mirrored a growing, deep-seated sense of frustration. Her work, bringing structural integrity and beauty back to things forgotten, was the only honest thing left in her life. She tossed the hammer onto a drop cloth, wiping a streak of plaster dust from her cheek. The Sinclair mansion, her 6-month obsession, had been a consuming beast of a job. Rotting floorboards, crumbling plaster, and a 100-year-old mahogany balustrade that fought her with every splinter. She specialized in history, but today, history felt like a heavy, unwelcome shadow. She finally pulled the phone from her tool belt and the image filled her screen, immediate and blinding in its calculated public joy. Her younger sister, Serafina Sarah Vance, draped in shimmering white satin, her face luminous beneath a delicate, lace-edged veil. The caption, styled in an ornate, demanding font, final fitting for the big day. Sarah and Julian Thorne, forever after at Blackwood Manor. Wedding. What wedding? Ellie felt the cold, disorienting shock of betrayal. It wasn't just a missed invitation. It was a public declaration of her irrelevance. She swiped frantically. The evidence was a flood. Her cousin showcasing dresses in the color of dusty rose, her mother, Vivian Vance, holding embossed invitation samples, the venue, the Blackwood Manor, an exclusive old money estate in Ethelberg, Colorado. Everyone was going. Everyone but Elowen, the eldest daughter, the reliable one, the financial safety net. The screen flared with an incoming call. Vivian Vance. Ellie answered on the first ring, her voice clipped with controlled fury. "Mom, don't tell me the invitation got lost in the mail." Vivian's voice, a measured, too-sweet confection, immediately adopted a tone of martyrdom. "Elowen, honey, I was just thinking of you. How's the Sinclair project?" "It's fine," Ellie cut her off. "I'm asking you directly. Why wasn't I invited to my own sister's wedding?" The silence stretched, thick with evasion. "Elowen, darling, don't make this about you. You know how sensitive Sarah is. You're always so busy with your career, and frankly, you can be intimidating." "Intimidating?" Ellie stood, the sudden, fierce movement sending a ripple through the room. "Intimidating because I asked questions when she introduced Julian after 3 weeks of dating? Intimidating because I was forced to pay back the $22,000 loan after her supposed cafe vanished 9 months after she opened it? She had the children to think about, Elowen," her mother snapped, the sweetness gone. "Single motherhood isn't easy, and Julian loves them. He thinks family is important." Ellie moved to the window. The picturesque view of Ethelberg's historic downtown, feeling cold and distant. She thought of all the times, taking the blame for Sarah's messes, covering for her reckless decisions, and providing the money. "I haven't been forgotten, Mom," Ellie whispered, her voice dangerously quiet. "I've been erased." "Now you're being dramatic," Vivian sighed, resorting to the tired script. "We can talk about this later. I need to go help Sarah finalize the guest count." The line clicked off. New wedding posts continued to flood the feed. A family portrait without her. The exclusion was public, a cold, undeniable declaration. Ellie felt the weight of 35 years of responsibility lift, replaced by a cold, absolute clarity. This time, I won't fix what they've broken. She opened Instagram and with methodical precision unfollowed her sister, her mother, and her father. Each tap felt like severing a useless, painful tie. It was an act of self-preservation. 3 days later, the need for finality drove Ellie to the hearthstone, the Queen Anne Victorian her parents had owned forever. The sun, high and indifferent, glinted off the stained glass above the porch. Her father, Arthur Vance, appeared in the garage doorway, wiping grease from his hands, always hiding behind the restoration of his Mustang. He saw her, flinched, and retreated. Your mother's inside, he mumbled, refusing to meet her eyes. Ellie walked past the man who taught her to love the integrity of old structures, but who had no structural integrity of his own. Inside, she bypassed her mother's attempts at small talk and stayed standing in the entry. Tell me why my sister's fiancé, a man she's known for 2 quarters, has the authority to dictate who is and isn't family. It's about stability, Elowen, Vivian insisted, her face pinched. You're so independent. Julian is a provider. He understands family values. Family values, Ellie echoed. Let's talk about the $22,000 I paid when Sarah's cafe folded. Was that a value, or was it just an ATM? You are choosing a stranger's notion of stability over your own daughter's truth. Arthur shuffled in, smelling of oil and shame. Don't make things harder than they already are, Elowen. Harder for me? Ellie stepped toward them both. I'm still making the payments on her debt while she's planning a gold-accented wedding at Blackwood Manor. You are choosing to sacrifice my inclusion for his approval. Their silence confirmed it. Julian didn't want the responsible sister around. So, she found her meal ticket, Ellie whispered, the pieces clicking into a sickening place. And now I'm the liability. She turned and walked out. You don't get to erase me and then invoke the word family when it's convenient. 20 minutes later, Ellie slid into a worn booth at Copper Kettle with her best friend, Kira Sterling. That bad, huh? Kira asked, setting down a latte and recognizing the tense set of Ellie's jaw. Worse, Ellie admitted. Julian Thorne thinks I don't care about family, so they uninvited me. Kira pulled out her phone. Speaking of Julian Thorne, she slid it across the table. My cousin sent these last night from the Bluebird Lounge. The photos showed Julian Thorne, the groom-to-be, wrapped tightly around a woman who was absolutely not Sarah. They were laughing, heads close. In the final, damning image, his lips pressed against the blonde's neck. Ellie stared at the photo. Her stomach tightened, not with shock, but with a weary, bitter confirmation. Julian was exactly the predator she suspected. Last night, around midnight, Kira confirmed. So, what are you going to do? Tell Sarah? Stop the wedding before she marries this snake? The old Elowen, the responsible one, would have rushed to protect her sister. But the new Elowen simply pushed the phone back. No, she said, the word feeling foreign, but absolutely right. I'm not doing that. I'm not invited. It's not my place to interfere. Kira studied her, her eyebrows high. This isn't you. Maybe it should be. A cool certainty settled in Ellie's chest. I've spent my life fixing Sarah's messes. I'm done being the family safety net. I can't rescue someone who doesn't want to be saved. The discomfort of inaction was there, but beneath it ran a deep current. Relief. For 3 weeks, Ellie worked relentlessly. She stayed late at the Sinclair mansion, using the demanding, cold logic of structural engineering to keep her thoughts anchored. She was now focusing on the mansion's foundation, excavating beneath the original 19th century granite to assess for hidden water damage, a deliberate contrast to the unstable ground of her family life. The wedding day arrived, an oppressive weight in the crisp Ethelberg air. Ellie forced herself to focus, spending the afternoon installing a massive, salvaged fireplace mantle, a task so physical it left no room for reflection. At 11:47 p.m., the phone on her coffee table began its frantic chatter. She picked it up. The first notification was a video, shaky footage from the Blackwood Manor ballroom. Sarah, her white dress crushed, mascara streaming, was screaming at Julian. You knew I was seeing someone? You set me up? Julian's voice cracked through the speaker. Sarah lunged. Everyone knew. You weren't exactly discreet, you pharmaceutical fraud. Then came the sound, the sickening crack of Julian's open palm connecting with Sarah's cheek. The video cut out. The news banner flashed. Breaking. Society wedding ends in assault charges. Ellie's stomach twisted. The instinctive ache of protecting her sister rose, fierce and undeniable, no matter what. The phone rang. Vivian Vance. Ellie let it ring 4 times, fighting the ingrained impulse to rush. I wasn't invited, Mom. she answered on the 5th ring. Mom. A raw, ragged sob erupted. Elowen, please come. Your sister is hurt. She's at the clinic. I'm sorry about what happened, Ellie said, her voice steady despite the hammer in her chest. Truly. But I'm not the solution this time. You made it very clear my presence wasn't wanted at the wedding. It certainly won't be wanted in the fallout. But she needs you, Vivian whispered, the voice thin and desperate. She needed Julian. She needed security, Ellie corrected gently. What she needed from me was my absence. I've respected that, and I'm going to continue to respect that. She hung up, heart hammering, but her spine straight. The freedom of non-intervention was terrifying, but absolute. The next evening, the knock came just after 9. Through the peephole, Ellie saw Arthur Vance, soaked from a sudden downpour, holding a damp, thick manila envelope. He looked frail, 10 years older. Ellie, he called, his voice barely audible. Please, I need to talk to you. It's about the house. It's worse than that. Ellie opened the door. 10 minutes, Dad, and this better not be about Sarah. He slid the envelope across her dining table. We've been using your money for something else. What money? The monthly checks. For the house. Ellie spread the documents, bank statements, loan papers, a foreclosure notice. Her eyes landed on the loan amount, $195,000, a home equity line of credit, HELOC. The co-signers were Vivian Vance and Seraphina Vance. You took out a HELOC? Ellie's voice was dangerously quiet. For Sarah, she needed stability. Your mother told the bank Sarah was living with us to secure the loan. Ellie calculated the total. $82,000 of her money, sent monthly for 4 years, was paying down this fraudulent debt. Where did the money go? Sarah's debts, the down payment on her condo, the legal fees. Arthur looked at his hands. The foreclosure notice came yesterday. They're calling the entire balance due. Ellie grabbed her camera and began photographing every signature. Documenting bank fraud. Falsifying residence information on a loan application. I will absolutely use this. It would destroy your mother. Sarah's kids. Stop, Ellie commanded. You're the one who lied. Why now? I couldn't live with it anymore, not after you were excluded. A deeper professional thought struck her. The $195,000. That was the exact estimated cost they had discussed years ago for a major structural repair. Dad, she said, her voice dropping, the $195,000, that was for the new foundation, the one we said we'd do when the main beam started settling. Arthur's face crumpled. The money was meant for that. The next morning, Ellie felt cold fury replace exhaustion. She was dealing with structural neglect layered over financial fraud. Her parents had risked the integrity of the family home, the hearthstone, to bankroll Sarah's life. She called her Aunt Rosa, Arthur's sister, the only family member who never played favorites. Rosa, a retired notary and accountant, agreed to be there for the Einstein confrontation, insisting that truth was the only repair worth making. The family gathered that afternoon at Ellie's house. The large oak dining table was covered in the evidence of their crime. Ellie remained standing. This is the $195,000 HELOC, Ellie stated, her voice flat and professional. Taken out 4 years ago. Sarah is listed as co-signer using a false address. This is the $82,000 transferred from my account under the false pretense of house repairs. Sarah's face drained of color. Mom, what is she talking about? You said the house needed repairs. The money was to stabilize Sarah, Vivian snapped, instantly defensive. I did what I had to do to keep a roof over the children's heads. You kept that roof with my money and my trust, Ellie countered. The same money I earned while repaying Sarah's failed loan. That cafe loan, Sarah? You told me it was a refinance. It wasn't. It was for a luxury car down payment that I repaid, not a business. Sarah stared at the documents, her hands shaking. I didn't know, Ellie. Mom said you approved everything. Arthur finally intervened, his voice thick with shame. That's enough, Viv. Ellie has every right. The money was for the foundation, Sarah. It's worse than that, Ellie, Arthur confessed, his voice barely a whisper. The structural flaw, the main beam settlement, is my father's secret. Your grandfather, when he expanded the basement in the 60s, cut a corner. He never properly secured the primary load-bearing wall. I've known for 30 years. I've been patching it, too ashamed to fix it properly. The $195,000 was the estimate for the full engineered fix. Ellie absorbed the professional betrayal. Her father, a man of integrity, had compromised the very structure of their home, and now his family had stolen the funds meant to correct his long-held professional sin. The hearthstone was structurally unsound. "What do you want?" Vivian challenged, her face hard. "To send your parents to jail? To make your sister homeless?" "I don't want your house," Ellie stated clearly. "I want the debt repaid and the truth acknowledged. Aunt Rosa will coordinate the legal transfer of the side lot adjacent to the hearthstone. It must be sold immediately to cover the remaining $70,000 debt and stop the foreclosure." Arthur nodded, shame mixing with relief. "The side lot. It can be sold." "Fine," Vivian clipped, defeated. "I don't need an apology," Ellie told them. "I just need peace." Over the next week, Ellie focused on the title transfer. She met Reese Kincaid, her colleague, for a working dinner, handing him the original cafe loan paperwork she'd found. "I need you to look at this cafe loan, Reese," she said. The lender was Thornhill Investments. Sarah claimed they were private angels who backed out. "Does that name mean anything to you?" Reese looked up, his expression instantly hardening. "Thornhill Investments? That's not angels, Ellie. That's a shell company. It's owned by Thorn Development Group, the biggest, most aggressive land developers in Ethelberg. The $22,000 loan wasn't for a car or a failed cafe. It was a secret initial investment for the acquisition of the side lot itself. Sarah had been actively working with Julian for over a year to acquire the property needed for a much larger, undisclosed project. The Damsel in Distress Act had been a calculated farce. Julian Thorne wasn't just dating her, Ellie realized, the coldness spreading. He was acquiring an asset. He exploited her instability and my family's enabling to get his hands on that lot. "He's the heir," Reese confirmed, laying out the final professional betrayal. "Julian Thorne controls the entire Thorne Development Group, and his company is locked in a massive bidding war to buy and tear down a specific historical property downtown." Reese slid a document across the table. The property listed was the Sinclair Mansion, the magnificent historic house Ellie was currently restoring. Ellie stared at the page, the betrayal tightening into a knot of professional rage. The entire family saga, the exclusion, the fraud, the wedding, was a deliberate, calculated real estate maneuver. Julian hadn't wanted to marry Sarah for love or stability. He wanted the side lot as a contiguous piece of land, which was critical to a high-rise project that required the demolition of the Sinclair Mansion. "The whole thing was a lie," Ellie whispered. "My personal heartache was just a tool to destroy my life's work. The lot I'm supposed to sell to pay off the fraudulent debt is the one thing that will let him tear down the Sinclair." Reese leaned forward. "The side lot, now that it's in your name, is the linchpin. You can't sell it, Ellie. You hold the key to stopping Thorne." Ellie's financial debt to her family was Harnmath Bafir, $70,000. Her debt to Ethelberg's architectural history was priceless. "I need a complete architectural study of the Sinclair Mansion, specifically focused on external easements and historical preservation statutes," Ellie told Reese, her voice now hard and professional. "And I need every legal weakness you can find in Thorne Development Group's permits. They want a war. I'll give them a war. I'm a restoration engineer. I know how to find structural flaws and exploit them." The next morning, Ellie acted. She notified her lawyer. The side lot was officially off the market. She sent a certified letter to Vivian and Arthur, stating the lot would remain unsold until the structural integrity of the Sinclair Mansion was secured against Thorne Development. Vivian called instantly, frantic, the closed HELOC statement not yet sent. "Elowen, we need that money. The bank is calling." "The bank can wait," Ellie cut her off. "You put your family home at risk for Sarah's instability. I am now putting the lot at risk to protect my career and this town's history. This is the consequence of your fraud." Ellie threw herself into the war. She spent days at the Sinclair Mansion, not just restoring it, but fortifying it with legal defenses. With Reese's help, she dug through municipal archives, unearthing forgotten covenants and easements. Her structural expertise was focused not on wood and stone, but on the paper foundation of Thorne's greed. They discovered that Thorne Development's original permits relied on a misclassified zoning designation for the side lot, assuming it would be vacant and easily amalgamated. By keeping the lot in her name, Ellie had effectively rendered their high-rise permit invalid, as they no longer met the square footage and setback requirements for the project. The phone rang. The display showed an unlisted number. Ellie answered. "Ello Vance." Julian Thorne's voice was smooth, edged with menace. "You're holding up a multi-million-dollar project over a piece of scrubland." "It's not scrubland, Julian," Ellie countered, feeling a surge of power. "It's the anchor to the Sinclair Mansion's preservation, and your entire project is based on fraud. I own the lot. And I'm about to file a structural integrity challenge against your demolition permits based on the Sinclair's original load-bearing easements and the newly discovered zoning conflict." "You want money, Elowen? Name your price. I'll pay 10 times the value of the lot." "I don't need your money, Julian," Ellie said, savoring the silence on the other end. "I need you to lose. Thorne Development must commit to restoring the Sinclair Mansion and turning it into a public trust, or I hold the side lot forever. You will not build your glass box." He snarled. "You'll ruin your family. They need that money to save their house." "My family already ruined itself. I'm just restoring the balance." Julian hung up, defeated. Ellie immediately initiated the legal challenge. The legal battle was intense, lasting 4 weeks. Ellie leveraged her structural reports, proving that the proposed high-rise would compromise the historic foundations of the Sinclair Mansion's neighboring properties. She made the case public, framing Thorne Development as an enemy of Ethelberg's historical identity. 4 weeks later, the Thorne Development Group capitulated. The combination of the invalidated permits, the public outcry, and the threat of a protracted legal war forced Julian to concede. The Sinclair Mansion was saved. Thorne Development agreed to fund the full, professional restoration of the mansion, and then transfer the property to a nonprofit architectural preservation center. Ellie's firm was contracted to lead the entire project. Ellie's triumph was absolute. She sold the side lot, not to the Millers, but to a neighboring historical trust, at fair market value. She used the proceeds to pay off the HELOC in full. The certified check for the remaining balance was sent to her parents, officially closing their fraudulent debt. She didn't tell her parents or Sarah beforehand. She simply sent her father a certified letter, containing the final, closed HELOC statement and a note. Debt repaid. Structure secured. A month later, Sarah arrived at Ellie's home. She stood on the porch, clutching a small wooden box. She was working 3 jobs. The frantic sparkle was gone, replaced by simple exhaustion. "This is for you," Sarah said, placing the wooden box between them. "Dad found it. Our grandfather's pocket watch." Ellie lifted the hinged lid. The watch, a heavy, tarnished gold heirloom, rested inside. "How did you know?" Ellie asked, lifting it carefully. "You mentioned it once," Sarah whispered. "When we were teenagers. The only thing you ever wanted." She looked down. "I'm going to pay you back, Ellie. Every cent." "Take care of your kids, Sarah. Stand on your own feet." Ellie's voice was firm, yet devoid of judgment. "I opened college accounts for Emma and Lucas. I'm done rescuing adults, but kids, they still deserve a chance." Ellie wound the watch gently. The mechanism clicked, then began to tick with surprising strength. "It's time to build something true." When Sarah left, Ellie stood alone, the weight of her family's drama finally gone. She hadn't fixed them. She had simply fixed the boundary, and in doing so, secured the most important structure of all, her own life. Despite the success, a subtle current of anxiety still ran beneath Ellie's newfound peace. The hearthstone, her childhood home, remained structurally compromised due to her father's secret. She had repaid the family's debt, but the physical structure was still failing. After consulting with Reese, she took 2 weeks of leave. She drove to the hearthstone unannounced, Arthur was in the garage, but this time he wasn't hiding behind the Mustang. He was staring at a set of crumbling blueprints on his workbench. "I got the bank statement," he said, his voice flat. "The debt is clear." "The financial debt is clear," Ellie corrected. "The structural debt remains." Ellie spent the next 3 days at the hearthstone, not as a daughter, but as a consulting engineer. She meticulously documented the failing load-bearing wall her grandfather had compromised. She took core samples and calculated the maximum stress load. She calculated the total cost of the specialized helical piers required to underpin the foundation, an expensive, invasive, but necessary procedure. Arthur watched her, silent and ashamed. On the third night, he showed her a hidden compartment in the wall of the garage, a tiny, lead-lined box. Inside were his grandfather's journals, revealing the full extent of the structural shortcuts taken during the 1960s basement expansion. It was a professional confession spanning 3 generations. "I always meant to fix it, Ellie," he said, his voice cracking. "But the estimate was so high, and then Sarah needed the money." "I know," Ellie said, closing the journal. "You chose a temporary family fix over a permanent structural one." The new professional cost estimate for the foundation repair was on math BF check $110,000. The side lot money was gone, used to clear the HELOC. "I can't afford this, Dad," Ellie told him, "and you can't." Arthur looked defeated. "I'll put the house on the market. It's too much." "No," Ellie said. "I won't let you sell a structurally compromised house without full disclosure. That's fraud." Ellie returned to Ethelberg and devised a plan. She leveraged her firm's new, high-profile contract with the Thorne Development Group, the mandated restoration of the Sinclair mansion. Using the immense goodwill and press coverage, she convinced a consortium of local historical preservation funds and engineering grant programs to contribute to the Hearthstone Foundation Rescue Project. She framed it not as a family bailout, but as a historical integrity project and for one of Ethelberg's oldest Queen Anne homes. She did not ask her parents for money. She did not ask Sarah for repayment. She used her professional capital and her hard-won victory over Julian Thorne to fund the repair. For the next 2 months, Ellie oversaw the delicate, messy work of underpinning the foundation. It was the hardest, most complex structural job she had ever undertaken. When the final helical pier was driven and the main beam secured, she didn't just feel relief, she felt closure. The old debt was truly gone. The structure was finally sound.